Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
And that was the incredible, iconic voice of Cliff Kelley. I am his co-host, Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith. Our digital media producer and master of the arts is Ivan Ortega, Scouts Honor Productions. He is here live in person, so if you ever want an autograph, come by and say hello to him. We are moving on today with a very, very special person, a panelist that we have. It's Marlon Harvey. Marlon Harvey is a retired Chicago police officer of 33 years of service. Thank you for your service, Marlon. And also the president of the Chicago Police Sailing Association, instructor with the Chicago Maritime Arts Center for mariners in training class in Chicago Public Schools, and also a level 2 archery instructor with Chicago Archery Club. He is the Commodore of the Jackson Park Yacht Club, and most important, father of 2 veterans, Go Navy, Go Army. He's talking about Brandon Harvey, U.S. Navy, who served on the USS Roosevelt, and then also Brian Harvey, U.S. Army, a combat veteran serving in Afghanistan. And our prayers and thoughts go with them, and stay in the power. You are part of the family. Okay, how are you doing, Marlon?
How are you? Good evening. I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Well, you're 33 years of service. We have to come on, talk about your life, about what you've seen for 33 years in the service to our city, and thank you so much for your service. We just don't give enough recognition to our members who serve on our Chicago Police Department. Today's discussion is going to be honoring U.S. Navy, U.S. Coast Guard veteran Captain Bill Pinkney. What an incredible history. You know, you sort of enlightened us a little bit about his history. I knew a little about him before, but this is really incredible, some of the accomplishments he made. Why don't you tell us about Captain Pinkney?
Yes, I will. I'll tell you as much as I know. As you know, I I am a little younger than Bill. There are people that are in his age group that I am friends with and that I have talked to often, especially in the last few days of planning for his service, his recognition ceremony that we're doing at the DuSable next week. So I will tell you as much as I know. I've talked to him. I've shared time with him. He actually called me a few months ago from Puerto Rico. That's where he lives. That's where he lived when he left Chicago. And he asked me if he could. I thought it was very gracious of him, and it goes to the point I'm going to make in a few moments of how much he thought about our young children. Mm-hmm. And Bill called and asked if his children's book that was written for him by Pam Rice, if he could donate the book to our yacht club, Jackson Park Yacht Club, at no cost to us at all. And then we would sell the book, and we would have the proceeds, and just make sure that the kids got the book. Wow. So I talked to him just that recently, earlier this month. Mm-hmm. But as you know, Bill is a U.S. Navy veteran as well. Mm-hmm. He joined the Navy not too long after leaving high school in the late 50s. He later became a U.S. Coast Guard Master's boat captain. Mm-hmm. He's most known as a captain of a vessel called the Amistad. Yeah. If you're familiar with the history of the Amistad, it's the slave ship that came to America that got liberated. There's a replica of the Amistad that was built in the Mystic River area by the Mystic Seaport Museum. Bill was part of building that replica ship. He then became the captain of that ship and sailed it for three or more years, as I know. He used that opportunity, sailing that ship, the Mystic ship, from different ports, to educate young children on the history of the ship and Black excellence in sailing, and just to share his experiences. And he actually was part of creating that ship and sailing that ship, just to give you some background on that.
Yes. Yeah, and you know, one of the things that really stood out to me about his history too, because I remember, you know, going through geography and studies on, global affairs and all that, going through school, even going back to elementary school. And I remember them saying, you had to have some guts to think about going around Cape Horn. And he was the first black man to sail solo around the world and went around Cape Horn, because that is, for people who know, so it's down in the lower part of Africa, and it is treacherous. Many sailors did not come back from that, and he was doing this thing solo.
Yeah, so actually the most notorious horn is the one by South America.
Oh, South America. Okay, yes. Okay.
That's the one where there are, unnumbered amount of shipwrecks. That's the one where sailors feared, and that actually, if you remember the story of mutiny on the Bounty, the captain of that ship threatened to take the crew around the Horn, and they didn't want to go, and so they mutinied the ship because they thought it was a suicide mission. But you're right, to do it alone there's no words to explain it, and I can share the sentiment with you because I'm a sailor myself. I've been sailing for just a bit over 20 years. And as you know, the Great Lakes here in Chicago, especially Lake Michigan, is very, very dangerous.
Very dangerous, yes. Treacherous waters, huh? Yeah.
It is. So I can only imagine, only dream of what it could feel like to be an open ocean, day and night. Think about the nighttime, on an open ocean, like the Southern Ocean, that you'd have to cross the Horn in.
I can't even imagine that. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about it and saying, being on an open ocean. And, I remember my first flight, with the military going overseas. And it was the first time I went overseas. And I remember seeing this one ship. And I was looking at it in the water. And it turned out this thing, it looked like a little piece of a speck of dust on the ocean. That thing was an ocean liner. Then I started realizing what that looks like and compare it to the scale of the ocean. And for someone to be out there by themselves doing that, that is just phenomenal. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, I can tell you this, and I'm speaking for myself now as a sailor, and I can only imagine that Bill probably would understand this as well, is when you are out there on the water, there's a sense of peace that comes over you. There's a calmness that comes, serenity out there. And you realize that your humanness comes into play. We kind of lose that in the hustle and bustle of the city.
Yes.
And so, this is provided, of course, you have the experience and the knowledge to be out there in the first place. So that's a given. But you just kind of settle in, you do what you know needs to be done, and you enjoy the ride. As things get tough, and there are tough days and nights out there, I know, and I'm sure Bill experienced as well, you just buckle down, and every time you experience an event, you learn a little bit more, and you just keep pushing. You keep pushing. So, I tip my hat to him. I will always, because I know what it's like being out there in the middle of nowhere. And that was very courageous.
And he was inducted into the National Sailing Hall of Fame, right, in 2021?
Yes. Yes. Wow. Again, when you think about black excellence in sailing, okay, these are monumental things. Let's back up and consider that for a moment. This is what I would call a non-traditional sport. We have a couple of non-traditional sports, that our young youth can get involved in, and this is one of them. So that narrows your percentages of participation down to a small number.
Yes.
And then when you start talking about the type of achievements that he made, that number gets smaller. The number's so small that right now it's one, because he's the only one that's done it, right? Went around the world.
Right.
So, when we think about black excellence in sailing, this is one for the books. And I don't know that the things that he's achieved will ever be matched, if you think about it. And continually, for a half of a lifetime for most of us, if you think about it.
Yes,
He's
yeah.
not like he just did this for a few years. He's been doing this for a long time.
Very long time, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, one of the things that's coming up also that I just wanted to mention it now, and I guess we'll bring it up again, as the show goes on, but there's an event that's occurring where Captain Bill Pinkney will have a memorial celebration and on November 4th at the DuSable Museum, and that's near 55th Street and Cottage Grove for people who aren't that familiar. But wonderful museum, first of all, about African American history. But then, to honor someone like Captain Bill Pinkney is just so apropos. It makes so much sense. So I'm not sure if you can tell us more about that.
I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, I myself, Jackson Park Yacht Club, the committee that's been working on planning for November 4th, I'd have to, I'd be remiss if I did not mention J.P. Betty from Atlanta, Mark Stevenson, Pam Rice. There's quite a few committee members, but those three are very, very close friends of Bill Pinkney's. They've sailed with him. As a matter of fact, another, and I'm going to get to the November 4th, but I just keep thinking about these things that are so important. Another notable thing that Bill was a part of was the first all-black crew to enter and race in the Chicago to Mackinac Island race, the longest freshwater race in the world. Bill Pinkney was on the boat in Jackson Park Yacht Club. Pam Rice was one of the crew members, and they sailed that boat in the Mac race.
Wow.
So these names I mentioned, they go back years with history with Bill, years. And so it's another marker right there. And if you don't know, I'll just tell you in the audience, the Chicago to Mackinac Island race is probably one of the most demanding races for at our level. There are professional racers that get on $2 million boats and sail all over the world, but at our level, it is the pinnacle race to be in, and it's 3 days on the water, day and night, and it's quite a feat. So I just want to give a shout out to them and DuSable Museum as well for hosting the event. I think this is going to be a history marker for them as well, and it is November 4th at 11 a.m. DuSable Museum. It's like 11 to like 2 o'clock, and we're going to have a host of speakers. His family will be there, the sailing community. We welcome everyone. If the auditorium is full, we would ask that people make themselves as safe and comfortable as they can with the space that's available. We just want to be there and recognize and honor what he's done for our community there at DuSable. And then after DuSable Museum, we're meeting at Jackson Park Yacht Club, which is 6400 South Promontory Drive, at 3 p.m. to continue honoring him as a meet and greet and just fellowship together and just talk about his legacy on that day. It will be live streamed. I would ask that people check Bill's Facebook page, Bill Pinkney. There should be a link there. We will also put the link for the live stream on our Jackson Park Yacht Club Facebook page. That will be included as soon as it's created, and so that if you cannot participate, you can watch it. As I understand it, Bill is known all over the world. There are countries in Africa, England, the East Coast, all the islands in the Gulf, Puerto Rico, which is his home forever, that want to participate. So it's being live streamed to make this available to everyone.
Wow, amazing. Because one of the things that, really struck me too is that he was, taking educators and other people on sailing voyages that trace the slave trade routes as well, because that has a lot to do with the history of how people moved, through the lake systems and through the waterways. And it's amazing the kind of depth you can get into with what he was doing, as you were talking about the global perspective, but also our local perspective here as well.
Yes, that would have been around the time he was doing his having his experiences with the Amistad sail vessel, showing the slave road and all the history that led up to that. But again, everything that he acquired, knowledge and experience, he shared, and he loved the children. Every time his name comes up, no matter who I'm talking to, that's the first thing they say to me, is how much he loved the kids. And I'm going to tell you, I remember before I became a sailor, over 20 years ago, in the 90s, I remember when he was going to the Chicago public schools through the neighborhoods and going there and doing lectures, presentations on screen, because at the time I was in Morgan Park, and he came to an elementary school in Morgan Park, and I remember Bill Pinkney was there. It was all over the news. This was before I even dreamed of being a sailor. So I know firsthand that he was doing that. He was going through all the neighborhoods trying to share and expose our young people to his experiences. And that is very key in mentoring, because our young people, our inner city kids, there's this element of feeling that a lot of things that they see on television or dream of are not accessible to them, that's not for me. And so when you have someone reaching out and saying, hey, we're here, you're welcome, we want to show you what we do, and we want to let you know that you can be a part of it. And I've always admired that, because I was that kid. I was the kid that in South Shore, I had a bike when I was 10 or 11 years old, and I'd ride my bike all through the neighborhood, and I would ride on the bike path and pass Jackson Park Yacht Club and look over there and see those boats, and all I would say is, ooh, look at that, and keep going.
So that was the aura, pulled you in.
Ooh, oh, wow, look at that. And I just keep riding, didn't think a minute of it. And then here I am. Yeah. I've been there 20 years sailing, made great friends, great experiences, raced, and now I'm the Commodore.
Well, we have 1 more minute to go, so I was going to have you give that plug again about the DuSable and why it's important for us to listen and learn this history.
So at DuSable Museum, we are actually going to plan to create an exhibit for the maritime industry, highlighting Bill Pinkney for the future, and in Black excellence of sailing. Excellent. So that's a long-term goal, and that will be at the DuSable Museum. So we ask everybody to stand by for that, so that will be there forever to continue exposing all of his work.
Well, Commodore Harvey, we have to have you back on again, I'm telling you, but we have to go to a commercial break now, but we are looking forward to having you back on. Thank you so much for your education for us. But stay tuned to America's Heroes Group. We will be back right away. Don't move anywhere. Stay on that dial.
Okay.
All right.